My boss fired me in front of the entire office. No warning, no explanation. Just 3 words: pack your things. 3 weeks later, an envelope showed up taped to my apartment door. My name wasn't on it. His was. And what I found inside didn't just explain why I got fired. It exposed something he'd spent years hiding. Something that would cost him his job, his reputation, and almost everything he'd built. The strange part? I didn't have to destroy him. He'd already done that himself. I just happened to find the proof. So before I get into it, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because if you've ever watched someone abuse their power and thought, one day they'll get what's coming, this is one of those stories. My name is Evan Mercer. I'm 34. For almost 4 years, I worked as a logistics analyst for a company called North Star Freight Solutions. Nobody grows up dreaming about shipment manifests and vendor invoices, but I was good at it. I tracked freight costs, checked delivery schedules, solved problems when things went missing, and if the numbers didn't make sense, I noticed. That was my biggest strength. Turned out to be my biggest mistake, too. I was the guy who showed up early, stayed late when a shipment got delayed, the guy people called when a vendor bill was mysteriously $3,000 higher than it should have been. My mother used to say, "You care too much about doing things right." I'd laugh. "Isn't that supposed to be a good thing?" She'd shake her head. "Not when you're working for people who don't." I never thought much of that, not back then. Then there was Caleb Rourke, Regional Operations Director, 46 years old, the kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like his best friend. He remembered birthdays, bought coffee for the whole department. At the holiday party, he'd go table to table, shaking hands, asking about people's kids by name. The executives loved him. The board loved him. I watched him once console a woman from accounting who just lost her father. Genuinely, tears in his eyes, holding her hand for a full minute. Everyone who saw that walked away thinking, that's a good man. But if you worked closely with Caleb, you saw something else. He took credit for other people's ideas in meetings, smooth as anything. He hated being questioned, not loudly, just coldly. And whenever someone brought him a problem he didn't want to deal with, he leaned back and say the same thing every time. "Don't make this bigger than it needs to be." I heard that sentence more times than I can count. I never thought much of it, until a Tuesday morning in October. It started with an invoice. Same vendor we'd used dozens of times, same route, almost the same way to freight, but the cost was thousands of dollars higher. I checked it again, pulled up older shipments. The numbers still didn't add up. So I did what I always did. I sent Caleb a simple email, nothing dramatic. "Hey Caleb, noticed a significant variance on this shipment compared to previous invoices. Can we double check before payment goes through?" A few minutes later, "Got it, I'll handle it." That's it. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days later, Caleb introduced us to his nephew, Travis Rourke, 27, fresh out of some business program. No logistics experience, no understanding of our systems at all, but Caleb walked him around like he was already part of leadership, gave him access to vendor accounts, financial reports, shipment records, the kind of access I'd spent years earning. And somehow, I ended up training him. I remember sitting beside Travis one afternoon, explaining freight contracts, and he kept asking questions that honestly should have been settled before he was ever hired. I told myself, maybe Caleb just wanted to give family a shot. Maybe I was being cynical. Then Travis looked at me and said, "You've been here a while, right?" "Almost 4 years." "That's a long time," he smiled. "Things are changing around here." "What's that supposed to mean?" He just shrugged, "Nothing," and went back to his screen. I wish I could tell you I saw it coming. I didn't. A week later, at exactly 3:16 in the afternoon, I got a message. "Can you come to conference room B?" I wasn't worried. Why would I be? Good reviews, no write-ups, numbers on schedule. I walked in. Caleb was there. Someone from HR was sitting beside him. And the second I saw her face, not meeting my eyes, my stomach dropped. Caleb didn't ask me to sit. I did anyway. He looked down at a piece of paper in front of him, then at me, then back at the paper. I remember thinking, why does he look nervous? Evan, we've made the decision to eliminate your position. I stared at him. Excuse me? Your position is being eliminated. Why? It's part of a restructuring. What restructuring? Nothing. Is there something wrong with my performance? No. That hit harder than anything else he could have said. No? Then why am I being fired? His face hardened. Evan, this isn't personal. I almost laughed. I was sitting there, trying to understand why a company I'd given almost 4 years had decided I was suddenly disposable, and the man responsible was telling me it wasn't personal. I asked if I could finish the week. No. If I could pack my own things. No. Security will escort you. That's when I knew. This wasn't restructuring. This was something else. I just didn't know what yet. The security guard walked me to the elevator. I carried a cardboard box past people I'd trained, past people whose shifts I'd covered. Nobody said a word. Not because they didn't care, because they were scared. I understood that. Still hurt. Inside the box, a coffee mug, a notebook, a cheap stress ball someone had given me as a joke, and a framed photo of my mother. That's it. 4 years. 1 box. I got to the parking lot, sat behind the wheel, didn't start the engine, just stared straight ahead. I wasn't angry yet, wasn't crying, just empty. Then my phone buzzed, a text from a coworker, 3 words, check your desk. Then another, Travis has it. I called him, no answer. I texted, what do you mean? 30 seconds later, your job. Wait. I called again, nothing. Then a third message, your position wasn't eliminated. My hands started shaking. Caleb hadn't eliminated my position. He'd eliminated me and replaced me with his nephew. I drove home humiliated, still didn't know why. Then I remembered the invoice, the one he said he'd handle. I opened my laptop, checked my personal email. Nothing. Searched my old notes, found the shipment number, stared at it, told myself, maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe there really was a restructuring. Deep down, I already knew that wasn't true. Now, a quick break in the story, because I want to ask you something. If you've made it this far, you already know where the tension's building. Drop a comment right now, just 1 word, envelope, so I know who's still with me when the twist hits. All right, back to it. The next few weeks were rough, really rough. I applied everywhere, sent resumes, sat through interviews, got rejected. One company told me I was overqualified. Another said they'd keep my information on file, which, as far as I can tell, is corporate for please never contact us again. I laughed about it the first time, stopped laughing after the 5th. My savings started shrinking. My mother's medical bills didn't stop. Neither did rent. I remember sitting at my kitchen table one night, staring at my bank balance, thinking, how long can I keep this going? My phone rang. My mother. I almost didn't answer. I did. Hey, Mom. She knew immediately. You sound tired. I'm fine. No, you're not. I'll figure it out. She went quiet for a second, then said something I still think about. Just don't let whoever did this convince you that you're the problem. I didn't answer, because I wasn't ready to admit how much I needed to hear that. A few days later, I ran into Marisol Vega at a coffee shop near my old office. She worked in HR, the kind of person who actually reads the employee handbook cover to cover for fun. She froze when she saw me. I almost turned around, but she said my name. Evan. Hey, how are you doing?
Living the dream. She didn't laugh. That told me everything. We sat, talked for a few minutes about nothing. Then she leaned in. Do you still have your old emails? Some. Keep them. Why? She glanced around the shop before answering, especially anything involving vendor payments. My heart started going faster. What does that mean? She shook her head. I shouldn't have said anything. Marisol. She stood. Did I get fired because of that invoice? She didn't answer, and somehow that silence was the answer. She walked out. I sat there alone with it, the invoice, the firing, Caleb's face when he said, "It's not personal." Travis. Something was there. I just didn't know the shape of it yet. 3 weeks after I got fired, I came home from another rejection, another polite smile from a company that didn't want me. I parked, walked toward my door, and stopped. An envelope was taped to it. No stamp, no return address. I looked around, nobody there. I stepped closer and saw the name on the front. Caleb Rourke. Not mine, his. I stood there almost a full minute before I even touched it. Why would anyone send me something with his name on it? I pulled it down, turned it over. Nothing on the back. Opened it. Inside, invoices, emails, shipment records, and a handwritten note. The note was from a vendor account manager named Wesley Grant. He explained that their records still listed me as the internal contact for one of North Star's accounts. They'd found discrepancies in several invoices and had been trying to reach the company. Since I was still listed as the contact, he'd mailed copies straight to my old address. My old address. On file. From when I still worked there. A clerical mistake. Nothing dramatic. No secret whistleblower plan. Just one boring administrative slip-up. That mistake was about to change everything. I spread the papers across my kitchen table. First invoice. Familiar. Same vendor. Same route. Same shipment type. The one I'd questioned. I pulled my old notes and compared numbers. Checked another and another. My stomach tightened. Same pattern every time. Costs inflated by thousands. I grabbed a calculator, added it up, did it again just to be sure. Over a year, this wasn't thousands. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars. I didn't want to believe it, so I kept reading. Then I found an email, Caleb's name at the top, sent to someone I didn't recognize. First sentence. Second sentence. My hands started shaking. Evan has started asking questions about the freight discrepancies. Get him out before he digs deeper. I couldn't breathe for a second. Read it again. There it was. The real reason. Not restructuring, not performance, not the company not needing me. I was fired because I noticed. I leaned back and whispered it out loud. You fired me because I noticed.
That's when the anger finally showed up. Not the loud kind, the quiet, dangerous kind. I wanted to call him, scream, ask how he could look me in the eye and say it wasn't personal. Then I stopped myself, because if I called him, he'd know what I had. He'd have time to bury it, build a story, tell everyone I was just a bitter ex-employee. So I made a decision. No social media, no threats, no shouting. I was going to build a case, a real one. I spent the next several days organizing everything. Dates, invoices, shipment numbers, payment records, my original email, the termination paperwork, the texts confirming Travis had my job, and that email, the one where Caleb told someone to remove me before I dug deeper. I printed it all, folders, tabs, dates in order. Then I called Marisol. We met at a diner across town, one of those places with cracked vinyl booths and a coffee pot that never stops moving. She looked exhausted before I even said a word. I set the folder down. Evan, tell me I'm wrong. She didn't answer. I slid the first invoice toward her. She read it. Her face changed. I slid the payment records next. She went pale. Finally, HR saw irregularities in this account months ago. What? We noticed the numbers. Then why didn't anyone investigate? She looked down at the table.
Because Caleb said it was being handled. My jaw tightened. By who? Silence. Marisol. She sighed. By Caleb. So everyone just trusted him? Not everyone. Who didn't? She looked up at me. I didn't. She told me she'd raised it internally, asked for an audit. He'd shut it down, told her it wasn't necessary. 2 weeks before I was fired, she'd been told to quietly remove my name from an internal review queue. Why? She looked me dead in the eye. Because he said you were becoming a liability. Liability. That's what I was to him. Not a person who'd given 4 years. A liability. Because I asked one question. I left that diner with the folder under my arm, and for the first time since the firing, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't going back to Caleb, wasn't asking for my job, wasn't begging anyone to believe me. I was going above him. I found the corporate compliance contact, then the regional vice president, Gideon Shaw, Caleb's boss. I spent an entire night writing one email, deleted it, rewrote it, deleted it again, finally sent it. Subject line, request for formal investigation, vendor payment irregularities and retaliatory termination. Attached everything. Then waited. Nothing the first day, nothing the second. On the third morning, my phone rang. Corporate compliance. They wanted to meet in person. I barely slept the night before, not from fear, from knowing this was it. Either the evidence held, or Caleb walked away clean.
I got there early, sat in the lobby holding the folder in my lap, thinking about the last time I'd walked out of that building holding a cardboard box instead. Funny how things flip. The elevator opened. Caleb walked in. My heart stopped for half a second. He hadn't known I'd be there. I watched it land on his face. He looked at me, then the folder, then back at me. Just a flicker, but I saw it. He walked into the conference room. Gideon was already seated, 2 compliance investigators across the table. Caleb took the chair across from me and smiled like this was nothing. "Well, didn't expect to see you here." Nothing from me. He smiled wider. "You know, Evan, I was actually worried about you." I almost laughed. Didn't. Gideon opened the meeting. "We are here to discuss concerns regarding vendor payments and Mr. Mercer's termination." Caleb put his hands up immediately. "Let me stop you right there. This is a personal vendetta. He's unhappy about being let go, and he's trying to get back at me." I finally looked at him. Exactly what I expected him to say. The investigator placed the first invoice on the table. "Can you explain this?" "Normal vendor variance." Another document. "And this." "Same thing." Another. "And this." His smile disappeared. "You're looking at isolated transactions." Gideon shook his head. "We're looking at 18 months of transactions." Silence. Caleb shifted in his seat, looked at me. "You've been keeping records?" I said nothing. "You know what this looks like, Evan?" I finally spoke. "Yes." He waited. I looked him straight in the eye. "It looks like you fired me because I asked one question." His face tightened. "That's ridiculous." I slid the email across the table. His name at the top, the line about getting me out before I dug deeper. He stared at it, didn't touch it. Nobody spoke. I could actually hear the air conditioning hum. Then he looked at me, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked scared. He picked it up, read it. "That's not what that means." "Then what does it mean?" "Nothing." "Caleb?" Gideon said again. Still nothing. Then Caleb slammed his hand flat on the table. I flinched. "You're doing this because you're angry. You lost your job, and now you're trying to destroy mine." "You destroyed your own job. You don't know what you're talking about." I slid the last document forward. His digital authorization, his signature, the exact transaction I'd flagged in October. He looked at it, and for the first time in the whole meeting, he had absolutely nothing to say. That's when I knew it was over. Not because I'd beaten him, because he'd finally run out of places to hide.
The investigation started that same afternoon. Caleb was placed on administrative leave, laptop confiscated, access revoked, email frozen. For the first time in years, Caleb Rourke had no control over anything at all. Marisol told me later he spent the first few days calling people, trying to explain it away as a misunderstanding. Then the investigators found more. A consulting company tied to his family, years of inflated invoices, a payment trail too big to explain his coincidence. Caleb was terminated for cause. The financial misconduct was referred out for further review. Travis lost his job too, not charged with anything, but the company finally understood exactly how he'd gotten access to accounts he had no business touching. His uncle's protection disappeared. So did his career. Then came the parts I didn't expect. The company called me. Compliance had concluded my termination was retaliatory. They offered my old job back, with back pay. I sat there listening, then said, "No." "You're declining?" "Yes." "Can I ask why?" I thought about it for a second. Because I don't want the job I had before. I'd already accepted an offer somewhere else, a competitor who'd heard about the investigation and made a better offer. More money, better title, actual respect. I didn't need North Star, didn't need Caleb, and I definitely didn't need my old desk back. A few months later, I went back to that building, not for revenge, just to pick up a box of my things they'd found in storage. Walked through the lobby, past the conference room where he'd fired me, stood there a second. Remembered sitting in that chair, confused, humiliated, wondering what I'd done wrong. Then I kept walking. My old desk was empty. Travis was gone. Caleb's office was empty too. I stood there for a moment, and strangely, I didn't feel happy, didn't feel angry, just felt free. I walked out to my truck. My old employee badge was still sitting in the center console, right where I'd left it months ago. I don't know why I kept it that long. Maybe part of me was still trying to understand how everything changed so fast. I picked it up, looked at my name printed on it, then dropped it in the trash on my way out. And I drove away. For 3 weeks, getting fired was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. It wasn't. It was the thing that finally gave me enough distance to see the truth. Caleb thought firing me would make his problem disappear. Instead, it gave me 3 weeks, 1 accidental envelope, and enough evidence to make sure the truth couldn't disappear along with me. The man who thought he could silence me with a cardboard box ended up losing everything because he couldn't even keep his own paperwork straight.
That's the thing about karma. It doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it comes in an envelope with the wrong name on it, and sometimes the person who thinks they've already won has no idea he's already signed his own confession. If you've ever been fired unfairly, if you've ever watched someone abuse a position of power because they figured nobody could ever touch them, then you already know why this one mattered to me. Tell me in the comments, if you were in my shoes, would you have exposed him or taken the new job and just walked away? I actually want to know. And if this story hit home, do me a favor, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying the person who hurt you, it's making sure the truth outlives them and walking away with your life still intact. I'll see you in the next one.